I want to begin the episode with a in the outer galaxy of blah, blah, blah.
You're doing it. I love the outer galaxy of blah, blah, blah.
Right? In the outer galaxies of the space world, there are infinite sprinkles in a fault line.
A fault line?
Because it's a fault line cake.
Oh, right. There's no fault lines in space because fault lines are on planets. That's why I was confused.
In this, I said cake space. Cake space is different. To make my galaxy cake, I baked 10 pounds of my ultimate vanilla batter in 5 7-inch round pans, and each layer is dyed a different color with black sprinkles sprinkled in, because I'm hoping when they're baked and I cut them open, they're just kind of spacey. Level them, remove the caramelization from the bottom, and I want to make sure I'm leveling them all to the exact same height. And then I want to remove the caramelization from the sides. One thing about colored cakes is, when I cut off the crust and I reveal the color, it's so spectacular, but when you see them out of pan, I'm always afraid that they're gonna look gross inside. Because the way that the color caramelizes, it never looks pretty. Now Sir Squeeze is here to help me simple syrup all 5 layers. One thing about space is clear. We don't know everything about space. This is clear. So I feel like space might have some secret chambers. I think they call them black holes.
Yes.
I'm going to use a circle cutter to cut out the center of all 5 layers. I always make sure to cut out the little holes that I've punched out because I'll need to use it as a stopper at the top. Now it's time to fill and stack these cakes with some Italian Meringue Buttercream. Make sure to keep it out of the chamber, so just run a small spatula around the chamber, stack the cakes, keep repeating until you're at the top. You want to keep the secret chamber clean because then your candy, or your dragées in this case, will just get coated in buttercream. We don't want that. We want to cut it and we want them to flow out.
Beautiful.
Here's the thing. Fault line cakes are super popular and we get requests for it. And you know how I feel about anything that's really trendy? I'm okay to do it, but I gotta make it my own. I'm like an American Idol contestant. I gotta make it my own. Now that my cake is stacked all the way up, all 5 layers, I need to fill the secret chamber. I'm filling my secret chamber with our Sprinkletonium Luxe sprinkles.
They're in test tubes.
Ooh, I love it.
May you fetch my sprinkles, please?
Let's see. Ooh. Okay, sprinkles coming in, yo. Ready?
You can't just throw Sprinkletonium. It will explode.
That's true.
I saved the day. I saved the planet. I love them because they do kind of look like little perfect meteors. So I'm going to pour these, but is that a meteor or an asteroid?
I have no idea.
Okay, Cody, you're on.
Okay. Based on my understanding, meteors are smaller versions of asteroids. So Earth gets hit by them pretty much every day, but an asteroid would be in rougher shape, as we've seen before.
We have? Oh, right, the dinosaur era. Sorry.
And that's why you're here, Jocelyn, because the dinosaurs no longer are.
You'd be food right now. Food. Once my secret chamber is almost filled to the top, I'm just gonna add a little circle of cake, like a little stopper. I've got to contain, the one thing about Sprinkletonium is it needs to be contained at all times. Now that all of the Sprinkletonium is concealed, it is time to crumb coat and chill this cake. For the outside of the cake though, I'm using black chocolate ganache. Boom, boom, boom. Now that my crumb coat is chilled, I am going to give this cake, because it's a fault line cake, I just want to ice it before I begin the fault line. I'm going to ice it with some more black ganache. Not a ton. I'm using the bench scraper to really, really smooth it, and then smoothing the top as well. And now we're going to let it chill again. So when you're icing with ganache, you don't want to put so much on as much as you would with buttercream because you don't want it to start hardening as you're smoothing it. Now that the ganache is chilled, the next thing I want to do is I have some Italian Meringue Buttercream in a piping bag, and I just want to pipe a line around the center of the cake. I don't want the line to be straight by any means, and then you're going to use a small offset spatula to smooth that buttercream. We're not trying to ice the whole cake in buttercream, we just want a line in the middle. That will be our fault line. Now it's time to press our Bake to the 80s sprinkles. See what we did there? Bake to the 80s, bake to the future. We just replaced back with bake.
Thank you for really spelling that out, Yo.
You're welcome. Are gonna press these Bake to the 80s sprinkles into that Italian meringue buttercream. We're gonna completely cover that buttercream with sprinkles, and these will look like the Milky Way. And now we can chill the cake and make sure the buttercream sets up and is chilled and the sprinkles won't move around for our next step. So now this is how we create the fault line. The cake is completely chilled, the sprinkles are in place, and then I'm gonna pipe the ganache all the way around the cake under the fault line and above the fault line. You with me? Okay. And then I'm gonna spread that ganache with my offset spatula and also make sure to ice the top. And now I'm gonna ice the cake the same way I normally would with the bench scraper, going around the cake, smoothing the top. And what you're gonna see is that fault line remains exposed, and the line of ganache that comes to meet it from below and above. It's not a perfect line, it just sort of gathers, but that's exactly what we're going for, because we want it to look as if the cake was once perfect and the sprinkles sort of busted it apart. You know what I'm saying?
Love it.
The next thing we're gonna do is splatter this cake. I'm just gonna take a little bit of white food coloring and place it in a bowl. I'm gonna have some brushes ready. So just laid a piece of paper on the top of the cake, and then I dip my brush into white food coloring and splatter. I mean, the universe is full of stars. We know this. We know this. I feel like we know.
We know.
Yeah. I mean, I think this cake is cute the way it is, but I want some planets on this cake. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you how I made each planet. So for Mercury, I had a large dragée from one of our sprinkle mixes. I'm gonna paint it with silver luster mixed with a bit of alcohol. I just get a little bowl, mix a tiny bit of paint, throw the dragée in, whirl it around. For Venus, I'm gonna use a regular size gumball. I mixed a little bit of almond luster dust. It's basically like an ivory luster. Whirled my gumball around and then placed it back in the mold to dry. For Earth, I'm using like a jumbo blue gumball. I'm gonna skip Earth for now because wait till you see what I do to Earth. I'm very proud of Earth. For Neptune, I'm gonna take that gray gumball and I'm gonna paint it with a little bit of blue luster, like a silvery blue luster, and allow it to dry. And then for Uranus, is it Uranus?
Yes.
It's Uranus? Nobody says that. Nobody says that. Uranus, I'm leaving the icy blue, and Mars, I'm leaving alone. It's the red planet. It's a red gumball. Done. For Saturn, I have like a jumbo gumball that's like tan and a little bit speckly. And for the ring around Saturn, I'm simply using some wafer paper, and I use 2 circle cutters to trace, and I used a food coloring marker to trace like a ring, but half a ring. And I also have some half sphere silicone chocolate molds because, as I mentioned, the Sun and Jupiter are really large, so I couldn't find a gumball of that size. Do you have any Sun gumballs? No? What's wrong with you? For the Sun, I've just melted some deep yellow candy melts, pretty simple, and then I'm gonna spoon it into the mold and just make sure it goes up along the sides. For Jupiter, We looked at various pictures of Jupiter. We went out to a field with our telescope. No, we didn't do that. I used a smaller size half sphere mold. And then I placed some milk chocolate and white chocolate, just sort of drizzled back and forth across the molds. I made more than one. So I made like 2 suns and I think I made like 5 Jupiters, just in case, because chocolate can break. You know the little orange part of Jupiter? It's a storm.
Oh, yeah.
That's like this, and we call it the Eye of Jupiter. It's a storm that's been going for 400 years.
That's crazy.
Do you know that the storm is so big, Earth can fit in it 3 times? That's just that dot.
This is like Planet with Yolanda.
Yeah, that is a show. Planet with Yolanda. Join me on my planet, which is basically what you've been doing the whole time. So once they're chilled and set, it's time to see if this worked. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna carefully demold the suns, and they look wonderful. And now I'm gonna demold all of my Jupiters, and then Cody and I carefully selected which one we thought looked the most like Jupiter. And I did have to paint on the storm. So I used a tiny little bit of copper luster dust and a very small brush. I just painted on the little storm on Jupiter. And then I used some red color dust and I painted it onto the sun. Now, back to Earth. That's the one gumball I didn't address.
I think you meant bake to Earth.
Bake to Earth. So, to make all of the continents, I rolled out some green gum paste, really thin, as thin as I could. And then I used these like random little leaf cutters I had, because I don't have any miniature continent cutters that will fit on a jumbo gumball.
What?
Another thing they didn't have at the store. And I just cut out little continents. Obviously right now, Earth, being this jumbo blue gumball, looks like it's entirely water. We know that's not true about Earth. I'm not sitting in water right now. I'm on land.
This is honestly groundbreaking.
Is this not groundbreaking?
This is groundbreaking education.
How to Cake It is filmed on land. And we had a profound moment in the kitchen, did we not, Cody?
That's right.
Because I said, I'm calling this little gumball cute, but in the span of the galaxy, Earth is this small. That's how small we are in the galaxy. Oh, wait a minute! The rocket!
Oh, yeah.
I've got to have a rocket. So I got a mold of a rocket. I don't think it's really supposed to, it was like 2 half rockets. It's flat on one side, but I was determined to have a whole rocket because we want this cake to like turn around. I want this rocket to be on a dowel. This way I can insert it in the cake and I can actually have a bit of space as if it's taken off, right? So taken off, in case you didn't get that. Now I'm gonna melt some white chocolate candy melts and I'm going to fill the mold with chocolate and put it in the fridge to let it set. So now it's time to demold the rocket, but the rocket was quite heavy and yeah. I broke one.
You look so sad.
I had to make another side of the rocket again. Yep. Now I can glue the 2 halves of the rocket together using more melted white chocolate. It will set pretty quickly because they're both cold from the fridge. You just pipe in some chocolate, hold it together, line it up, and you're ready to blast. No, you're not ready to blast off. Who would blast off in an ivory rocket? Even I would not do that. Ivory rocket. No, I'm painting it silver. You just want to brush the luster into the chocolate. I actually use 2 shades of silver. I have one that's a regular silver and then one that's a bit of a darker. I don't know what you'd call that metal.
Is this the dark silver hand motion?
This is dark silver. It's like beyond ivory, dark silver. Okay, so now it's time to place all of these planets onto my cake. So I decided to use my circle cutters. I warmed up my circle cutter that was the same size as my sun, and then I pressed it into the cake, almost like branding it, so that I could melt away the ganache that was in the way.
So smart, Gail.
Thank you. I also burnt my finger. And I piped some ganache right onto the fault line and very carefully pressed the sun with the dowel into the cake. I still wanted the cake to have a front, so I wanted you to be able to see that it was our entire solar system. So I didn't want to spread them out too much. So Mercury is nice and close to the sun, then Venus. I also laid them like some are below the fault line and some are above the fault line. And when I got to Jupiter, I did the same thing. I chose a circle cutter of the same size as Jupiter, used Mr. Burns, and then I sort of like melted away the ganache where I was gonna place Jupiter. For the gumballs, I used a needle to sort of pierce them so that I could fit a toothpick in the back because I was afraid that they were too heavy and would start to roll down the cake. And this way, the toothpick provides some support when I place them on the cake. Speaking of bake to the 80s, when we went to the school, Pluto was a planet in our solar system. So I just want him to know I didn't forget him. So I used a little silver dragée from Sprinkletonium and I put him like in the distance. We haven't forgotten you. They don't call you back to school and update you. Did you graduate in 1985? Yes, we need you to come back in. We have to talk to you about Pluto and the USSR. Thank you so much. Didn't happen. So this is my first galaxy cake, but all my mega cakes are out of this world. So if you want to check them out, click here. And now it's time to have the rocket take off from the cake. But you know what this rocket needs? Some smoke. So for this, for the exhaust, I didn't want to put exhaust on the cake, so I'm using white cotton candy. Now, one thing I need to say, I love cotton candy for stuff like this, but cotton candy does not like air. So as we like shoot footage of the cake, I have to be on cotton candy call. Like I have a cotton candy pager, and then when it's starting to go down, they call me in, I add more cotton candy around the rocket. If you like the sprinkles I used in this cake, they are actually this month's blends if you are part of our Sprinkle Club. And if you're part of that club, you get a new blend delivered to your door every single month. Or if you like sprinkles and cakeware, hello, you can sign up for our deluxe membership. You get sprinkles and cakeware and a surprise sent to your door every single month. There's a link below. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when I've made another cake. And in the meantime, check out our latest compilation over on step-by-step mind-blowing cakes. And just because I love it so much, check out my lobster cake. It started as a bottom feeder, now we're here. If you want to hear more of me singing that, you should really check it out.